around in handcuffs,
Yay.
and there are 3 other pickup trucks, and the sheriff is there.
Wow.
And they found out that he had stolen plates in the vehicle and heroin in the vehicle.
Oh my gosh.
And the really good news is, I come walking up, and the guys that are there representing the landowner walk out and say, "Thanks, Tom, for calling us."
Whoa.
I'm thinking, seriously, guys?
Saw your face
How
on a
about-
milk bottle?
Yeah, I said, how about saying thanks, good citizen?
Yeah.
And don't
I
label
don't need
us
this
so
guy to
good
know
either.
my
I was
name.
going to say, give your last name and social.
Should never give you real names in front of the outlaw.
And what I then said back to the owner of the land, and I said, it's a good thing I have a hard to pronounce last name, or they would have said that too.
Wherein, was that the preface, wherein God's name?
Yeah.
Ran on something?
Sir.
Oh, they're quieting down.
Yeah.
Oh,
The head man's going to gavel us.
Should we be at attention?
Nice to meet you, welcome.
Well, stand. Aren't we all supposed to stand when he walks in the room?
I don't think he has his gavel, does he?
It's over there.
Oh, no.
It comes with the chair, not with his vehicle.
Yeah. All right, let's call this puppy to order. Let's start off by Jim Godfrey, for those that don't know who I am. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here, taking time out of your day, audience, staff. Let me start off by reading the purpose statement for the Citizens Advisory Committee of the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority. Primary objective of the CAC is to ensure capital and maintenance and public transportation projects and programs approved by the voters during the November 2nd, 2004 and November 6, 2012 elections are accomplished with PPRTA funds. The committee reports directly to the Board of Directors. Any questions? Okay. All right, so we've called to order, and all alternates can vote. We have a couple of folks with excused absences, and I'd like to invite the new CAC member from the CTAB, Kyle Blakely. So, Kyle, you want to just introduce yourself real quick?
As you said, my name's Kyle Blakely. I've been on CTAB now for a couple of years. I have a marketing communications and advertising firm here in town and have been in the Pikes Peak region now for about 26 years.
Awesome, thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Thanks.
Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Mr. Rogers? Okay. Any public comment for any members of the committee? Reb?
Commissioners approved 4-1, putting a ballot
and here
initiative.
you Reb. Where you're gonna, I think you do it to waterboard me.
Miss Treese.
Thank you.
I thought he was going to get a
The
shot.
Board of County Commissioners met yesterday and on a second reading approved 4-1 to put a ballot initiative on to, in essence, what concerns this committee, to add $6 million plus, minimum of $6 million for the CDOT's, what we call the GAP project. I asked each of 3 members if they wanted to come and make any comments, and 2 of them said yes, and I'm sorry, my eyesight must be failing because neither of the 2 board members came. That's just an update. Cheryl.
Did they also raise the Tabor limit?
Yeah, if you read the ballot initiative, what they did is there was approximately a $14.5 million excess Tabor. And don't point at me, point at Joan. She's the one that can't hear.
I'm gonna smack you.
I need to tell you to stand in line then.
He gave you a warning.
Oh, no.
There was a $1 million for, was to go to disaster recovery from the 4 disasters we had, 2 fires and 2 floods. There was $1.5 million is to be dedicated to the Parks and Recreation, and then $12 million plus to roads, 6 of which go to specifically
The gap.
to the GAP, and the other $6 million to roads and bridges. And they also are resetting the Tabor limit to the 2017 cycle.
Okay. Yeah.
How much is it going to do to cost to change that gap? I thought it was about 12 million or something.
How much is going to?
They've said to make the third lane in the gap's about 12 million.
No. The gap is totally separate. They are only giving $6 million plus to the gap. The county is.
In addition to the funds that the RTA will have on the ballot to supply in addition. And it's a drop in the bucket to the total cost of the gap. But what we're really talking about is that mile and a half in El Paso County is all that we and the county are putting the skin in the game for.
Thank you.
I don't think so. Any other public comments from any members of the audience? Okay, seeing none. Okay, do I have a motion for approval of the minutes?
So approved.
Second.
Mr. Lawrence, and who's second? Jim? Okay, thank you. Financial reports, Ms. Bev.
Good afternoon, Beverly Majewski, PPRTA Financial Manager. In the first report, or 5A, we have the sales and use tax comparison on page 1 to prior years by month. And in June, we received $9,006,000, and you can see that we were below budget for the first month since January of $244,000 or 2.6%, and we're still above budget by $1,145,000 or 2.5% year to date. The city had the same type of below budget figures, and they do an analysis, and it was for business services, computer programming, and leasing of equipment and office furniture, that they had such a great amount last year for the same month. So that's what created the dip. Not as much this year.
I was thinking it's because that we want to use excess monies.
Wipe that from your vocabulary.
You mean above budget?
Above
That's
budget,
what you
yeah.
mean. Okay. Page 2 compares last year to this year by month, and we were still ahead of last year's total by $254,000 for the month, and we're ahead of last year to date by $3.7 million. And then the next pages are just the revenue and expense summary, the next 3 pages. And then the final pages compare the to-date cost expended per capital project compared to the total project. So those last pages are cumulative since the beginning of the PPRTA.
RTA 1 and 2?
Yes, so the first 2 pages of the last 4 pages are RTA 1, and the page 8 and 9 are RTA 2.
Okay.
Are there any questions?
Any questions for Bev on the monthly financial reports? Yes, sir.
Bev, when I look at your graph on your second page, it looks like July has historically been our worst month. Do you anticipate that's going to happen again this year?
Well, it just seems to flow that way, and it's from year to year like that.
Yeah,
So the spikes in June probably have to do with events and so on that occur in the region.
I mean, has this been kind of this way we see here, 2016, your recollection, was it the same way in 15 and 14 and 13?
I think so.
Okay.
And what caused it?
I think it's because we have more events like in June, leading up to July, but I don't know off the top of my head. There's one year it started going up. I think, when is the state games? Do you know what?
We're in early August or late July.
Okay, well, then that might be why it goes back up in August then. But there's like certain events that trigger this.
Okay. Any other questions, Tom? Okay. All right. Second, 5B, the 2018 budget calendar.
So the calendar that's attached to the memo, it's very similar to last year's, and it satisfies all the legal requirements set by the state of Colorado for local, for government entities. And we're looking for a recommendation for the board to approve this budget calendar.
Got a move to approval from Reb. Joan?
So moved.
So you're going to second? You're second, okay. Any questions or discussion on what we're talking about here and what the need for this is? Okay, do I hear a call for the question? And all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
All right. Capital maintenance and public transportation contracts, City of Colorado Springs.
Good afternoon, Mike Chavez, City Engineering. We've got a multitude of contracts for your review today. Couple of things. First of all, on your list, item number 11, which is the pipe rehabilitation for 830. We're actually going to pull that off the agenda. And also, Rick, Mike said that the Pikes Peak was on last month, reconstruction. I can't remember.
Let me look at the minutes.
No.
All right. Well, just while he's looking that one up, you want to talk about the others?
Okay, so first, what we have is first 5 items are some.
Hold on a minute.
Oh,
Why are you pulling 11? And the reason I asked, because that thing is, I say that particular intersection, that particular intersection has been shut down twice now. Paved on the north side and completed. They came in and did more work on the south side, and then they went back in later and fixed the south side again.
oh, we did. Okay. Okay. So. Okay. All right. So they're pulling that for budgetary reasons. They're gonna next year.
Over there.
Aw, she loves you.
So, okay. So yeah. So we'll be pulling that one off for budgetary reasons, and we will take number 6, the Pikes Peak reconstruction, because that was approved last month. Mm-hmm. And getting, yes.
Okay.
I'm getting challenged to keep up. Okay. All right. So the first 5 items we have is they're city contracts that did not have the RTA language. So we are submitting these to be approved so we can use them. Again, these are going to be not to exceed $2,000, $200,000 per task order, but they're more, to be able to use them. Not that we were planning on it. They're the service contracts for labor, for street work.
Cheryl?
I'm not sure I understand the purpose of these maintenance contracts. They're to hire temporary staff for the city for PPRTA-related projects. I read that, but isn't that just in lieu of hiring people?
No, this would be, it'd be for temporary workers mostly on maintenance, street maintenance work. We hire temporary staff to work.
For instance, the pothole crews are usually temp workers, seasonal temp workers, that kind of thing, right, Mike?
Yes. And so we have contracts with the city, but it didn't have the RTA language and provision. So we're bringing it to the CAC board for their approval for us to be able to use them.
So they have contract vehicles in place through the city for hiring these people to do the work, but they didn't have the provisions allowing them to use them for RTA work. So they're just adding the RTA language.
Excuse me, did you say they didn't have that?
The current contracts do not have the language. This is to add that language. That's the way I understood it.
Or is that the mechanism for them to get paid is using the PPRTA funds?
Well, it is to use some RTA, but also the city will use city funds for it. And we've been using these contracting mechanisms with ad staff and express mainly since the beginning of RTA. So this is not nothing. This is not new. It just we want to expand the choices of agencies we can use.
So this is purely, so this is purely field personnel that are physically doing labor. It's not administrative or engineering or anything like that?
As far as I know, yes. I'm not. We don't use any admin staff on our side, on the capital side, that I'm aware of.
We have an inspection staff that is
Spec.
PPRTA projects that is funded.
Okay. So they're inspection staff, which is kind of field, more on the field side than admin.
That was going to be my question. Senior moment. The flaggers for the various projects. Do they work, it appears in watching some of them that they work for companies like Works or some of the other barrier sign providers. Are they temps through the city, or are they for your barrier traffic control companies?
They would be through the traffic control company.
Yes.
Because we paid for some schooling, or no, you pulled that, never mind.
No, we
You
pulled
did.
that.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
disregard.
Yeah, I think we have the flaggers, since there's a fair amount of liability, we put that on the contractors to hire them directly.
Sure, okay, all right. Any questions on that group of ones, or anything? Okay.
Okay. And actually, there's 6. If you go down, number 8 is also, oh, no, that's the material. Okay. So we pulled 6. Number 7 is looking for approval of a construction contract to construct 2 new signals at Constitution, Murray, and Fountain and Circle with CMS. And then we have
I got a question, I think Brian may too.
Yeah, quick question on Constitution and Murray. I seem to remember, and I actually may be compressing years because years have been going by pretty fast lately. I seem to remember that Constitution and Murray, those signals were replaced not too long ago. Do you happen to know how long it's been since that intersection was last dealt with?
No, I don't. I mean, my thinking is that those are usually,
It could have been as much as 10 years, but I
Let me check on that, but I don't know.
Recently.
I don't know if we've replaced it that soon. But let me check on that.
Okay.
And I have a question too, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
On the patterned concrete, I've noticed that the stuff that was installed, particularly comes to mind Woodman Road and I-25, the cheap decorative stuff that was there for curbs, and that pink pattern stuff, it pushes up as soon as it heaves, and as soon as the snowplow hits it, it crumbles the curbs and all that stuff. So, and they've redone that intersection at Corporate and stuff there with look like poured concrete versus decorative stuff. I'm probably using the wrong word, but it looks terrible. It doesn't hold up. The curbs all around there are all busted up, and it's really a very ugly scene for a major entrance and northern entrance into the city. But this patterned concrete, are they now pouring real concrete and then using patterns, or is this prefab stuff that they're kind of setting on
You're
top of?
talking at the freeway?
Well, and I was using that as an example of what I consider bad patterned concrete.
Mm-hmm.
So you're redoing the intersection at Constitution and Murray, and you've got patterned concrete in your description.
I'm thinking, and I know what you're talking about. What I've seen near the freeway is there's very large sections of the median. And that was worked at CDOT, and I'm not trying to blame them, but
No, that's okay.
But when you have those larger areas, they do heave. I think the stuff we're doing, we don't have as large areas, and we have expansions.
Typically in the little triangular things around the light fixtures themselves, is that?
Yeah, and I'm Cole Platt. I'm with Public Works Operations and Maintenance with the contracted programs on the concrete side of the house. When we're doing the pie shapes in between our ped ramps or we're doing median work like you'll see on Lake Avenue, we are actually, that is poured in place concrete that is stamped.
Okay.
So it's a 4 to 5 inch thick concrete that the top of it's stamped. So it is not, we're trying to get away from the bricks, we're trying to get away from rock, because the kids somehow kick the rock or take the bricks and throw them in the road, and it's just maintenance, more maintenance time, so.
Okay, thank you. All right, next.
Okay. We've got number 8 is maintenance contract to provide crack seal materials for for maintenance operation to use. So that's a supply contract for crack seal material. Then the next one, we've got a contract with Lane Inliner to rehab some pipe. So we've been putting our operations have been putting those out for bidding because they're getting better pricing that way.
And I wanted to just bring up again, I really appreciate the fact that you guys are putting the bids on here, the way you've been doing. I mean, that's very helpful because it kind of gives us an idea of where the market's at.
Okay.
Mike, that's a lining, and it says it's CMP. I assume it's concrete, right? Or is that
Corrugated metal pipe.
Okay, so it is capable of lining?
Yes, we put a structural lining that we've been having very good success with that. Yeah, we did that on Centennial on the 72-inch, and then Street's been
Getting in there and pushing it out, but getting into a small pipe is a little difficult to push it out so you can put the liner through.
We have skinny guys do that.
So it's neither you nor
I'm not one of them.
Sure as hell ain't me. I heard somebody say, too, it's a 50-year product, right?
Yes,
Yeah, that's good.
Are they planning to do the rest of it,
the rest of
that storm sewer? I said something, I thought this was amazing. They have a problem with Ruskin and also the intersection of Pikes Peak floods. And I talked to Corey, and he said, get a hold, and it might have been this gentleman, but I also talked to Travis. If you have a crew out there, as soon as we get a rainstorm, within 2 weeks, you have to come out there and clean the gravel that goes all the way down to Academy, and they have to clean the storm sewers. And they've been out there in the last month 3 times fixing, I'm assuming it's water line because the water's bubbling up down here, but they're working up here.
well,
And they've also had to repair a gas line there between Shelley and Whittier.
Yeah. I'm not sure. One of the challenges operation has is there's about 300 miles of CMP.
I don't care about the other 299.
So they're tackling those on, again, with the RT money, it's stuff adjacent or in the road, and they're tackling as much as they can. Next one, 10, again, it's a lining of another pipe in Circle Drive with In Situ Form Technologies. We pulled 11 and.
Mike? Mm-hmm. I noticed in your pipelining stuff that the 3 vendors that it seemed to be the players took turns in not bidding. Is that a capacity issue or a skill set issue, or is there something else going on there?
I call it.
Okay, so I do the concrete and the pre-overlay pipe. So with two of our in situ form and Lane Inliner can do bigger pipes. Our other one, I can't think of CVS or CHS.
CNL?
CNL, yes, CNL. They can only do smaller diameter pipes, so they won't bid anything that is a bigger diameter pipe.
Okay.
So it cuts down, and we just got in situ form involved. I've been trying to get them involved for 2 years just to get a little more competition going with our market. And we got CNS going, but they won't do anything large diameter. So we finally got in situ form. Makes sense? Okay.
I got a question on this one. So
You might just hang out here, Cole.
a 72-inch diameter pipe, isn't that a bridge?
I really want it to be.
No, it's not because it's not open on either end.
If it
Okay.
isn't open, how does it flow through there?
How's that pipe?
It's not exposed on either
Yes,
end. Okay.
and that's one of the. We got a definition.
All right.
So, Okay, then the other three are more supply contracts for crack seal material with three other vendors. Again, it's just operations just wants to have flexibility. The economy's booming right now, and you just need to be able to just shop around for availability a lot of times. So that's the reason they.
I have 4 suppliers of crack seal.
Any question on that one? Then next one, we have a change order on our missing sidewalks program, and that basically is for the work that was done on Arcadia by the elementary school that just opened up, and that is actually money that's the change order is actually getting paid for by the stormwater division. So it's not RTA money, but even Pricer had the contract and did the work.
So the price of this particular change order, the 86,000,
Yes,
and that's stormwater?
yes.
Okay.
And then the last one is we had awarded about a $300,000 contract to start conceptual work on the Vermont Sierra Madre project to AECOM, and we are adding in the preliminary and final design to their contract so they can continue working on that.
That basically constitutes a complete rebuild of that street, doesn't it? Because it doesn't have any curbs or gutters or anything on it now at all, right?
Yes.
Was it a nightless project?
No, I don't know.
No, this is,
It's listed as capital.
yes, we are using capital money for,
Construction streetscape.
That's $1.2 million
But it wasn't on the list.
consultants.
no, we're using, if you look at the
In engineering.
the financial sheet, it's got capital intersection improvement money, it's got some CSU reimbursement, parking enterprise, and then the bulk of it is the urban renewal.
Okay, so the RTA piece of this is taking out of intersection improvement, citywide intersection improvement?
Yes.
That says maintenance.
Oh.
This says capital.
This is capital. Little X in the capital box.
But there's no dollars beside it. The dollars are beside the maintenance. They're asking for $1 million.
Oh, that's the dollars are in the middle of the box, not
Well,
on
it's
the straight line.
$1,300,000 on this request.
Yeah, add all that up.
I kind of see what Red's saying, because it says task order amount 0, funds available 20.
Well, it's because of the conceptual, and maybe it was $399, we used that to get them started. Now we're supplementing the final and preliminary final design, but that's getting paid out of the
So-
the three other
So we've
categories.
already paid the 399, 400,000, and now we're adding the 350 from the parking enterprise and the 8,700,000 from urban renewal.
Well, we're actually, if you look at the, it's 199, 350, and 729.
Okay. Oh, I see what you're saying.
The other is just how much money is available.
Yeah, okay, all right. So this particular amendment has no additional.
No, if you look at the cover sheet, it says RTA 0 and others
So this is
1.2.
just kind of an update.
Just thinking about it.
Well, we need, since it's a RTA approved contract, even if we use other people's money, we still have to come and get approval for the
Got
change
it.
order.
Okay, that makes sense. Everybody clear on what we're doing there? Okay.
Okay. I think that's all we have.
Any other discussion or questions for Mike, Dave?
On the crack seal supplies, is that for AC-10? Is that for the aggregate? Is that being supplied to the site?
It's,
I mean, I'm just kind of curious as to why it's broken out as task order, but usually, I recall, we usually did that stuff out.
Well, this is for the in-house crews to buy the material, and they go out and do the work. It's not a contract with somebody to go out and crack seal it.
So they supply
This is a supplied,
10 in the aggregate, or what?
whatever the crack seal material, yes, they would supply whatever operations specifies for the crack seal.
So you don't bid that out the first of the year like everything else, like asphalt
I'm not sure if they have some crack seal contracted. This is for basically an in-house crews to do it. And I think they've run some numbers, and it's a lot more economical for them to do it within in-house forces.
Dave, let me help you.
Sure, do you
Crack
know?
sealing has to be done with certain temperatures,
Right.
okay?
They don't bid
And
it.
it does not usually have an aggregate. They've got a couple of wide crack seal materials that the city's testing and the county are testing also that has aggregates. Most of them are liquid, heated.
I just, the way
It's-
they put down the aggregate too, and I thought that they had done a bid or a study of the bid when they looked at using slag from Pueblo versus.
That's for the chip seal? This is the crack, this is crack sealing, where they, yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Is this what some of the temporary employees are going to,
We all have them. Reb has them more often.
I thought the same thing.
Okay.
Tom?
well, I had a question. Is this what some of those temporary employees are going to be doing?
Yes.
Is this type of work?
Okay. Any other questions? Rev?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Oh, do I hear a call for a motion or recommendation to approve?
I move that we approve the list as presented, excluding items 6 and 11. 6 pulled because it was done last month, and 11 because the city has changed some plans.
Good.
Joan? You're okay, second it? Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Member governments, other reports. Mr. Transit report.
Is that it?
Oh, Brian?
Good afternoon. Brian Vituli, City of Colorado Springs, Mountain Metropolitan Transit, with your monthly transit report. For the local fixed route services, we saw an increase of just over 1% from July of this year as compared to July of 2016. Couple interesting facts I'd like to point out here. We're continuing to better every month so far in 2017 of what our ridership was in 2016. So we're continuing a very good trend. And also, if you look at the 3 years of July ridership, you'll notice those are really consistent numbers. And I don't know what the cause of that is. I mean, I'm thinking maybe it's probably one of the strongest vacation months. But it's just very interesting that it is very consistent from year to year. But yeah, we're still continuing that upward trend of ridership for 2017. For our ADA services, we saw almost a 2% increase in ridership for that same time period. And for our van pool services, we saw a 9.3% decrease, again, from July of this year as compared to July of last year. For our project update, in January and July of this year, we had 2 public processes, and we'll be implementing the results of that public outreach effort on Sunday, October 1st. So the first part of that will be increased frequency on Route 25, and that operates from the Citadel Mall on North Academy to the Voyager Parkway Transfer Center. So that's an increase in ridership, increase in frequency from 30 minutes to 15 minutes. Continuing that trend of putting increased frequency on those high ridership routes. The second part of that is to add another vehicle to the operation of routes 10 and 11, and they leave the downtown terminal going south on South Nevada, and they run together down to Southgate Road before they branch off and converge again at the Pikes Peak Community College. So adding that additional vehicle will help with some on-time performance issues we've been having in that corridor. And as I mentioned, those will both take place on Sunday, October 1st. And also, we presented on August 21st to City Council's work session, asking them to pass a support or resolution of support for For the recommendation that came out of the mayor-appointed steering committee to prioritize those 3 final sites for our new downtown transit center, we'll be going back to them on Tuesday, September 26th, where they are expected to pass that resolution of support. There were a lot of positive head nods at the August 21st meeting, and so we're pretty excited. The mayor's behind this, and city council's looking like they're behind it, so it's continuing with some really good momentum.
Brian, do you have a time? Do you know what time that council meeting is? I sent Greg
It's 1 o'clock. Yeah.
Thank
And it's expected, I don't believe it's going to be on the consent calendar. It's going to be a new business item, so we would like to just give a very, very brief summary, but also recognize the steering committee members that were part of that process. Are there any questions?
Just a quick question. This is just a resolution to support the final 3. Do you have a kind of a timeline when you expect to have a decision made on the location of the site?
Well, this is a resolution of support for the prioritization of those 3 sites, so that the clear choice for that site that we're going to be moving forward on is it's Site 8 at Colorado and Cucharis and Sahuache and Sierra Madre, just a block and a half north of the Olympic Museum and Hall of Fame. So what we wanted was a prioritization of those 3 sites because of the history of trying to get us into a new transit center. We wanted to have a prioritized list to go down to it if we need to. If the first site falls out, we can go to the second site or the third site. So, good question.
Yeah, it was a very good process, a lot of very good stakeholders. I was part of that, and including I was part of the 2 other studies over the last couple of years as well. So it was a very good process. I was looking through some pictures the other day during one of the steering committee group meetings. They had what they call a scatter diagram, where everybody independently went up and ranked this whole list of stuff with putting a different colored dot on this diagram. And nobody conferred with each other. Everybody just got up and put their dots on, but they were all 3 projects were the same, and everybody ranked all 3 the same. I mean, there was a little deviation right or left of where it was, but they were all clustered. It was pretty much a unanimous decision by the group on these 2 locations, so we'll see. But thanks, Brian.
Okay, thank
Any
you.
questions for Brian? Thank you. All right. City of Colorado Springs, El Paso plan for spending the remaining capital projects. Mike, you and Jennifer going to tag team this? Or
I think so. So we got together with the county to discuss exactly what we're going to do. But I think previously, when we created the reserve pool, there was discussions that kind of prioritized North Mark Sheffield as the project to target once everything else done. So there's a little bit shy of $5 million available in the pool right now. So one of the requests that we had made earlier, the city did, is we wanted to use about $200,000 of it to start the design of a bridge over Sand Creek, just north of Woodman on the Mark Sheffield extension alignment. And that was approved. And so what we came up with from our discussion is that, one, we'd like to complete that bridge. We're thinking that'll be about $2 million, once we get the construction done. That bridge, once it's done, then will be tied into with developer-funded roadways. And one of the reasons that Kathleen was looking at that is right now all that development, and I think it's Sterling Ranch or something, everything kind of goes toward Vollmer and out Black Forest, and that's really the only exit they have. So when we do the bridge and developers connect part of the extension of Mark Sheffield, there'll be another entry point to that area, neighborhood area onto Woodman. So that would help relieve some of the congestion on Black Forest.
Well, I went up there the other day, a while back, and was looking around. There's a development on the south side of that creek bed already right now that's developing, and where Mark Shuffle goes into that current development there. That seems like a pretty wide ditch through there. I mean, it's not very deep, but it's pretty wide in certain sections of it through there. And so I think someone mentioned before, so we're putting in a bridge for the benefit of the developers. But I think the response was a bridge is a little more expensive than roadways, and therefore they're not going to pursue development if we don't put in the bridge. I mean, is this we got to do this in order for the development?
No, I think it's more of a, no, not so much that we're doing it because they want. It's more like we feel that if we put the bridge in and then they come and do the roads, that just creates more access to that neighborhood, helps relieve congestion off of Black Forest. So it's kind of a way of leveraging our funds.
So if we build it, they will come, kind of thing.
It'll spur them to speed along their development.
Okay.
So that would be the first thing we're going to tackle, and then so that would leave about $3 million. So then the next section that we would like to work on is on Mark Sheffel between North Carefree and Barnes Road. That is a 2-lane. We want to expand that to 5-lane. And one of the reasons we want to look at that is because there's another development on the east side there that has to put in some money to build accel and decel lanes, so we can pool that money with the $3 million and maybe some other funds that we can cobble together and get that next section done. We don't have a price tag on that.
Does that fix the drainage in those two low spots?
Yes, there's the one low spot that the county has done the design, and some of this money that we're looking at is some county maintenance money to do that.
Yeah, there are two dips along that road there between there. One of them's got the 4-foot-high water flow sign that goes through there, but.
I love taking people through there. It scares the hell out of them.
Yeah.
So it will, those two low areas on the downhill side of that is that residential area, so there's not a whole lot of place you can take it unless you divert it north-south, so.
We would put a crossing, and I'm not, is that the southern, I'll let Jennifer, because I don't get out that far.
Hey!
I said I don't get out there.
Okay,
So
we'll blame her.
today there's a 36-inch pipe that goes under Mark Shuffle Road, and just above it there's a detention pond within a private development. So that when we originally did the plans for Mark Shuffle was identified as a box culvert crossing, and then downstream it's really unimproved, but there's and you can't really see it from the road, but there is a downstream kind of natural drainage way downstream of that. So and right now what happens is that water goes there anyway because essentially the 36-inch culvert doesn't have adequate capacity to carry that, so it just goes over the road.
It goes down the same drain anyway.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going south, that first dip before you know where I'm talking about, that one's not as deep, but isn't there a housing development right just off?
That manufactured housing development.
Yeah, and what you can't see from the road is that there's actually a drainage conveyance down on the west. The west side of Mark Shuffle. In fact, we just did some maintenance up there because we were having some issues, so the county crews did maintenance over at that location. So, and a lot of that drainage actually comes from the north, from city development, and then goes underneath the box culvert there at Barnes, and then goes right adjacent to the road. It's so high. The road is so high, you just can't see that drainage conveyance there.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. Rep?
2 questions. So the $1.5 million for the box culvert or whatever the county's going to do is coming from their maintenance, PPRTA maintenance funds. So there's $5 million in it. I think the figure is actually $4.7 million. Is that going to cover both the bridge and whatever you're doing to Mark Shuffle?
Well, like I said, we're thinking the bridge up north is about $2 million. Then we got $3 million left over. Well, $4.5 million with the county money, and then some developer money. That, we haven't started design, so we're not sure what the price tag is, but this is a start, and then we'll try to supplement it with some other funds.
Okay, I understand that you don't know because you don't have a final design. This is the thing that we started way back in 14 with pooling the money. I think it was 14, wasn't it? But regardless, we're now at the end of, quote, money, by and large, from PPRTA 1. What happens when you get partway through with either the bridge or some of the other parts of the project that you're talking about, and you need $6.5 million? Where does the other $1.5 million or $2 million?
Well, I said I think we're looking at either more developer money in this section. That's why we broke it up in chunks. So we'll see where we're at on this number 2, and if we need some more money, we'll see where we can find it, or we just build what we can afford. Like I said, at this point, we're not sure how much that whole section is.
Lanes over 5. Yeah.
I'll add to that. I mean, the other thing is that we still have other projects that we're closing out. The county still has some money in the Baptist West. I know Mike's closing out Woodman. We're still closing out Mark Shuffle South. I think what we're trying to say is that we're at a point where I think we're comfortable enough knowing that there's going to be some money left. So what we want to do is get, and you already started on the design of the box, or the bridge, but I think it's prudent for us to go ahead and start designing some of these other projects so that we have a good handle on what those costs are, so that as we close out these other projects, they're starting to come back into the pool, we can move them along so that we're not starting this 2 years down the road. So I think that we feel comfortable enough saying, hey, we have these 2 high priority projects, and then here's some other bulleted projects that we'd like to do too. So I think as we continue to close these out, we're not putting ourselves in a position where we're locked into these projects, but we're putting ourselves into the best position that we can to identify what these projects cost. So say it does come in at $6.5 million REB, maybe we look for some other funding. Maybe it's through federal funding, maybe it's other PPRTA funding as other projects close out, maybe it's city funding, maybe it's county funding. There's a variety of different funding sources that we have, so I think we're just trying to move these projects ahead forward so that we can get this money out on the roads and spent as quickly as possible.
Well, we asked for a plan, and you're giving us one, so, I mean, that...
And I think what we've shown here too is that we'll start the design, but we're going to have to come back with contracts for construction. So I think hopefully you have a comfort level to know that as these move forward, I mean, this isn't the last time you're going to see it. I think that we have to continue with this as a kind of a living document and make those recommendations as they come forward. But I think, at least from my perspective, I think we're trying to leverage this money as much as possible and be smart about spending it.
Okay. Lawrence?
When do you think you'd start the design on this section so that you can get a better handle on your costs?
Probably this year, maybe first of the year. Again, it we're working on the bridge up north. We'll kind of see where that cost estimate comes in at. But we could probably put an RFP out and get a small contract going later on this year, I think.
Any other questions?
Let me finish. Let us finish our other work.
Bev?
So the city is going to be the project manager on this second phase of Mark Shuffle North. Is that correct?
Yes.
The invoices will come through you.
Yes.
I'd just say that some of this is in the county and has an interface with the county. So as typical with these projects, we're going to be working together.
And then the last two is we've got two totally missing sections that will as we tackle these other two, and if there's some money, or we might want to try to find some money out of the pool to start looking at what it's going to take to close those 2 gaps to get a ballpark. Again, that I would imagine these two, the Barnes to Dublin and Mark Shuffle north of Copwood, probably looking at getting something, if we do any design, probably next year, early next year, before we get going on that.
Okay.
If I could,
The question I have is, if I'm understanding correctly from everything you guys have told us, these, just because these are numbered 1 and 2, that's not necessarily the priority they're going to be handled in, is that correct?
No, this is it's basically the priorities 1, 2, and then the bulleted points are the next 3 and 4. It just
Okay,
they're
so it is, this is,
the
we're going to handle that bridge first, and then we're going to handle, the concern I have is that section of Mark Shuffle from North Carefree to Dublin is, for anybody who drives that, is extremely treacherous. There was, and I know there's a personal responsibility, but there were 3 accidents in one day at North Carefree. My concern is that is quickly, actually, it's beyond becoming a safety issue.
There's no signal there either.
Right.
And-
There's no signal there. It's a stop sign. It's also right where the choke point is. And there is a heck of a lot of building going on the east side there, as you mentioned. There's the new subdivision, but Banning Lewis is still expanding.
You're talking about number 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that one's going to, we're probably going to do that concurrently with the other one because
Okay.
we've been talking to one of the developers and they're ready to go now. So I think we're going to have to
they've
do
already
something.
got the infrastructure in there for.
And they want the left turn. So we'll be at least coordinating, doing some design, and that'll be the time we look at what do we do from a safety point.
Okay.
So this isn't, number 2 isn't like real far down the line necessarily.
Any other questions for Mike on this plan for the remaining money out of the pool? For the new members, do you remember what the pool is? 2 years ago, right near the end of RTA 1, the board made a decision when the member governments were realigning some funds and updating project costs for the final surge on RTA 1. The board felt like there was some money that was unallocated at the time for those projects, and rather than municipalities keep them for themselves, they created the pool and they collected this money into the pool so that as RTA 1 wound down and the county needed money to finish a project and they didn't have it, but the city had it, that we could complete a project regardless of where it was. So that was kind of in a general sense of where this pool was created, and it's kind of been sitting there at about 5 million, a little less right now, 4.9 or something like that now. So that's what this pool is. And so there, we asked him to come back for a plan of how you would like to spend that. The county and the city have come together on that, and that's what we have today. So do I hear a motion to recommend to the board we approve this plan? Tom?
I move.
Second.
And Tom seconds, both Tom. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
City Car's capital revision, Academy over Cottonwood Creek.
Okay, Mike Chavez, City Engineering. So per Policy 26, we coming back with another project that we've got pretty close to going off construction, and we just coming to give you an update and kind of a summary of where we're at with the cost. So the Academy over Cottonwood Creek Bridge was originally anticipated to be a rehabilitation and then of the existing box culverts, extending them to widen Academy because there's only sidewalk on one side, on the wrong side because everyone keeps crossing that little, on the east side they keep walking in the roadway trying to get between
Pretty scary.
the trail and the Starbucks and
A lady pushing a stroller down
Yes.
the shoulder of Academy with no sidewalk.
Yeah.
That's
So this project's also, we're working in partnership with Park and Rec because it's one of the last Cottonwood Creek links that's not connected, so you can't get from the east side to the west side of Academy, and we've been getting a lot of calls of when's this going to be done. So this was a project on RTA 2A list. It's, if you look at the ballot language or the initial costs that were on there, 1.28 million for the roadway work, and we had 600,000 under the Cottonwood Creek Trail for Park and Rec. was the money that was initially allocated. In 2010, we had an engineering firm do a cost estimate for all that work, and their estimate was about $3.4 million. So the 1.28 was basically to cover the widening and some roadway improvements. There was some money, the $600,000 was for the additional bridge for the, or the additional tunnel for the pedestrian and trail crossing. And those two don't add up to 3.4, and I think the thought was that Park and Rec or some additional funds would be used to close the gap. So we started on the design, and we decided, because of the nature of the work, that we brought in a contractor under a CMGC, which is a construction manager, general contractor. So basically at design phase, you bring in a contractor to help with the design and cost estimating. And so they were working on that. So as we got preliminary work and numbers, it was substantially higher than the 1.2. And part of that is we looked at what has cost done since 2011. It's about 8% increase. So part of the increase in this project is that inflationary trend that we've been seeing. So instead of 3.4, the inflation is, would bring the cost, those initial costs, up to about 5.4 million.
In reality,
yeah. So that that's a challenge we've been facing on all our projects. Then we also had the designer and the contractor look at what's it going to cost to rehabilitate and add that additional box, and we're looking at a price of about $4.5 million for the rehab. So we said, okay, a rehab's only going to buy us about 30 years of life, and then we'll probably have to go back and revisit that. So we had them look at replacing the bridge in full, and that was about $6.4 million. And then again, this is just the construction of the base construction. So we decided that it would be better to replace the bridge for a couple reasons. One is basically the service life. We could spend we could spend $7 million and be back there in 30 years, maybe more, maybe less. Or we could replace the bridge and it would get us at least 75 years of service life. The way I looked at that, from my view, is I've actually got some people on my staff that if we just rehabbed it, they could be working on this in 30 years. If we replace it, I don't think any of us are going to be around. So we thought it was a better value. Also, the bridge just provides better drainage capability, and so based on those factors, we have decided we would like to replace that bridge.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any questions so far? And then
Bev can go first. Bev and Rick both had questions.
So, Mike, what are you talking about for the proposed revised cost estimate for the RTA portion of this bridge?
okay, so if you look at the second page of the memo, what we came up with, and this is a total project cost, engineering, construction management, everything. If we rehab the bridge and add the box, we're looking at about $7.5 million. With total replacement is about 10.1. So what we're looking at is right now we have 6.1 million that's been approved for RTA. We're looking at adding 3.4 in 2018 of RTA money, and these two numbers include the 600,000 from the Cottonwood Creek Trail, and then Park and Rec is going to add in another $700,000 to cover the 10.2.
So the 6.1 and 3.4 minus 600,000 for the trail, is that what you're saying?
No, that 600 is in those two numbers, because it's our.
I'm just trying to look at this particular, is Cottonwood Trail Corridor Improvements is a separate PPRTA project. So if I took the 6.1 and the 3.4 minus 600,000, I would have what you're talking about for Cottonwood Creek Bridge. Is that right?
No, I believe the current funding, that 6.1, I believe that includes the 600,000, because I think we've got 5.5 million from the bridge standpoint, and then 500 or 600,000 gets us 6.1.
Okay, just with taking the 600,000 out, what should I put for Academy over Cottonwood Creek Bridge?
For when? For 18?
No, for the total.
Oh, I think it's 5.5.
Yeah, I used to have 6 million.
What's that?
I used to have 6 million at one point. Went from 1.28 to 6 million, but now you're saying 5.
I don't have the rainbow spreadsheet with me, but.
Okay,
but-
let me know.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that brings a question. I'll get to the other guys in a second, Bev, but you brought up Cottonwood Trail corridor improvements. Just happens to be 600,000 in the RTA 2A list. So is that 600,000 for the bridge? Is that the contribution to the bridge, or is that for other trail improvements on Cottonwood Trail?
It's for the trail connected with the bridge in that vicinity.
Yeah.
So they
bridging that gap from one side of the bridge to the other, and downstream a little ways.
Yeah.
Just,
And then they'll be bringing another 700,000.
and then they're going to add another 700 from Parks and Rec.
Yes.
That's non-RTA.
I'm not sure where they're.
Okay, all right. I just want to get some.
But they've committed to 1.3 million.
Dr. Null?
Just wondering if at some time during the year, do we get information that shows where various monies went for various projects, that is state, county, and local? I'm always confused as to some of these projects. Why doesn't the state do that? And so it would be helpful at some point to know how much is coming really from the county and how much the state is paying. We forget because we have a big highway and we know that the state has to pay for those.
On this project, it's all RTA, city and park money. Academy is a city road now.
No road and bridge.
No, this is all.
If RTA didn't do it, it wouldn't get done?
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting.
Larry?
When did we start that? I would have said state first and then us.
Well,
I'm sorry.
But it's not,
State-
yeah.
But it's no longer a state highway. This is a city street.
Yeah.
now. So that's.
I'm so far back and so old, I didn't know.
Yeah, right. Larry?
Mike, I used to live about 2 miles away from that Academy and bridge over Cottonwood Creek. And you also have a problem with the bridge over Cottonwood Creek at Union Boulevard, but we won't get into that discussion. But in the years that I lived there, seeing some of the flows that came down that creek, it's not been too bad probably the last few years because we haven't got the moisture like we did before. But there were some years, 10, 15 years ago where the flows were really high going through that bridge. So I think your decision to completely rebuild that bridge and put a larger culvert or however you do it to make it last for 75 to 100 years, I think that is the appropriate way to go with that project.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, and so the bridge would just have a larger opening, a span area.
Mike, if you look, the original project scope, where it wasn't completely designed, was approximately $2.1 million. But in 2017, you had a budget approved for $5 million. It's $20,000 over that. Now you're saying the project is going to be 10.2. So literally, that project is roughly 5 times larger than your original project scope. Bear in mind that was not, in 2012, you knew you had to do something. That was about it. And now you're going to replace the bridge in its entirety and increase its capacity. I think this goes a little beyond policy number 26. When I say that, it is not, this is not a recommendation type thing. It's more of an informational thing, but I think it ought to be brought to the board's attention how much of an increase this is, because, in other words, the scope is far greater than originally even perceived. By replacing the bridge in its entirety, that was not a plan, and then increasing its capacity.
And hence, that's why we have 26 to bring you information. I think, the decision on whether we rehab it or replace it is an engineering decision. And like I said, and it's also, kind of like, yes, it is, 3 million more, but we also are looking at, do we spend 7 million, and like I said, we could be back there in 20, 30 years redoing it, or do we spend, a little bit more and get more of a, I don't want to say guarantee, but more of an assurance that we will do our routine maintenance and have something that we don't have to put major expenditure for, a good 75 years, at least 50. So that is why, we made the decision to replace it, and then we are here, explaining to you where the cost increases are. I think, again, the big one, there's two things that we're finding with our projects is, we've got these kind of thumbnail estimates, and when we start getting into the detailed design, we realize, oh, there's a lot more to this. So that's increased, quite a bit on some of these projects. But the other thing is just the inflationary costs. Like I said, we got from 3.5 to 5 million. So it's 2 million just in inflationary costs that we didn't anticipate.
Okay. Rick and then Scott.
I just want to point out a key word and make sure everybody is comfortable with it. The wording on the ballot is Academy Boulevard over Cottonwood Creek Bridge rehabilitation. I personally am comfortable with rehabilitation being replacement, but I just want to point out and make sure that the CAC and the board are comfortable with the definition of rehabilitation, including replacement.
Replacement, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Anybody have any serious concerns? All right.
Just wondering, do we have any way to determine whether it's a county bridge, a city bridge, and the same with the roads, or is that already defined out somewhere? Because it seems that who pays depends upon whether it's the city, the county, or local, but we hardly ever see an indication with a map that says these roads are taken care of by the state. These roads, I know the freeways probably are, but you see what I mean? I'm not sure who does what.
Well, in this case, this is a city,
This is a city road.
facility.
City roads,
Yeah.
okay. So inside the city limit is a city road.
Yes.
Not always.
No.
For the most part, unless it's a
County
state.
roads then.
No, it'd be there's a few state highways in the city, but for the most part, it's all city.
And there are pockets of county stuff too. Scott?
My question, we haven't seen the 18 budget yet, so that would probably be answered then, but where is that extra where are you proposing to pull that extra 3.4 million from?
I've got a draft that we've been working with, and it's in there.
From their capital allocation?
Yes, and, we've got a little bit of a bigger allocation permitted, got 100,000, so I was able to mix and match and tweak, and we got everything covered, so it's in there.
Brian?
The question I have is, Parks and Rec was originally putting in 600,000 for the tunnel.
I think it was put in there with the intent to, even though it says Conwood Trail, I think it was targeted for this segment.
Do we know, roughly, now that we've kind of fleshed things out a little bit more, do we know how much that's actually going to cost? with the bridge replacement now rather than the rehabilitation, do we know how much this trail improvement, tunnel, whatever, is going to cost? And is essentially what I'm getting at is the input from Parks and Rec commensurate with that?
Okay, so basically, originally they were going to have to actually fund an extra cell. Now we've got a bridge. So I would say the trail itself, the concrete, is probably well less than 600,000. So the money that they're putting in, the whatever the difference is of the 600 plus the other 700 is their contribution to the project, and I think that is it's
And I'm
fair.
assuming this is going to look something like what they did at I believe it's Circle and Constitution, if I remember correctly. There's that tunnel there.
No, this is going to be a bridge. So if you look at your packet,
The map.
yes,
Okay.
there is. There's some boxes that's what we were thinking of doing, but if you flip to the other side, you'll see a cross-section of the bridge and the creek opening and the trails off on the right-hand side. So that's about what it's going to look like.
Oh, I got you, okay.
Well, they had originally, at the open house that held at the firehouse there on Dublin a year or two ago, they had a couple of different designs. One was to bring the trail that's on the east side of Academy, southeast side of Academy, to bring it under the bridge and then across to because the trail on the further west is on the north side of the creek. And they had a couple of different designs through there. So I'm assuming that now that you've decided to do a replacement versus a rehab, that design is changed commensurate with your decision to do this. So I'm sure that their original trail design has changed from the original concept as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think they are putting a bridge to get the trail.
A separate bridge
Yeah.
versus going across the roadway. They were going, one of the options was to make the roadway at Academy wide enough to bring the trail up and over, but then the other option was have a separate bridge that connects.
Well, they're going under Academy, and then they'll cross to the other side of creeks west of the bridge. But there is also a little spur, so if you're on the creek,
Get onto the-
you can pop up to
Yeah,
Academy.
okay, all right. Okay.
Because currently, it sits at the southeast is where the termination
Right,
is right
right.
now, but the trail picks up
Right.
on the northwest.
Right, yeah. That
So
was-
they'll cross to the south side on the west side of Academy and then come under.
Right. Okay. Mr. Knoll?
I was just going to ask, is there a map that shows an overlay of city and county roads? We for years talked about whether it's a city road or a county road. It seems to me it's important to know which it is.
I think PPACG planners have that map, if I remember correctly. Right, Rick? I've seen it in the planning documents in the long-range transportation plan, so I'm pretty sure that they've got.
And I seem to remember too that the county and the city both have inventory of bridges that they are responsible for.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, every year, the city and the county, per state statute, have to report to CDOT, the HUTF report. And what that consists of is what roads we have and maintain. And so we have those. We have those databases. And if you ever have a question, they're just really not combined. What I would say is that changes all the time in regards to annexations and then new roads that are constructed and then constructed through development or through capital programs and then accepted by the county and the state and the city for maintenance. So it's an ever-changing, ever-evolving system that we track all the time.
I guess to add to that, I'll bring a link, but the city website has quite a bit of maps. There's a map gallery that has 2C, RTA, a lot of, all the projects are on different maps on our
The city
website.
of
So.
Denver has a inside the map map. Doesn't it?
We got some pretty good
We
stuff.
don't have something like that for Colorado.
No, we got some pretty good. Like I said, I'll bring the link and share that with you.
This would be very interesting. I've never asked the question before whether we get a copy, but it'd really be helpful for us to realize which roads. You know, I ride on the road every day, and I think it's city because I'm in the city.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? So, anyway.
All right. That was informational only. I think Reb and I were just talking, I think that due to the significance of the increase from the original estimate to now the $10 million, I will make sure that I emphasize the magnitude of the increase during the pre-meeting to the board so that the board's aware of that. And I don't think we have enough information to turn it into a recommendation because the costs are not completely firmed down yet. So,
Not only that, but Scott's point that it's a 2018 budget item
yeah, right,
has to be taken in totality.
right. So,
And that it's a reconstruction, it's not a reconstruction, it's
Right.
a rehabilitation. It's a reconstruction.
we'll just, what I'll do is make sure that during the pre-meeting and the stuff that we highlight that we think this is a large enough change in a scope and cost that they just need to be aware of it and make sure that it's not just an informational item that somebody sets off to the side.
Yeah.
Tom?
One final thing, Mike, when you do bring this back for a recommendation, if you could have some more graphics that show us the trail configurations, all of that kind of
Yes.
stuff, so that we really kind of know what's going on.
And we'll probably do that in November. We have plans. Again, we have a contractor who's on board. They're working on pricing, but there's some things we're negotiating, working through.
And consider having a person from Parks also in here.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. Item 7D, Colorado Springs Monthly Change Order Property Acquisition Report.
That'd be me.
Again.
I just had that just a second. Okay. So we have a couple of items on there. One is with on the Centennial reconstruction. We've got a change order there to add median landscaping. We originally did not have enough money to complete the project, but we've done some changes and worked with the contractor. So we are completing the project, including the southern third. We didn't actually award the mill and overlay originally, but we were able to reduce costs enough to get that awarded and added. And then we are adding some landscaping. We've actually removed a fair amount of the medians, decent amount of the medians, but the neighborhood, there was a significant number of people in the neighborhood who wanted to keep some of the medians and the landscaping, so we're adding that in to this contract now.
Is that from the south end of Holland Park to Fillmore? Because all the rest of it's torn out and
Yes. So we took out a lot of the we took out basically when you're coming from Fillmore in front of the big apartment, that median came out, and through the neighborhood and the south end of the neighborhood it came out because it was restricting left turns. But we put back in or kept some of the ones near the shopping center and the north end of Holland Park, and those we were landscaping.
Okay.
Then the next item is just some additional stormwater work on the Woodman Road widening. We just had some of the peripheral roads in the neighborhood. We just had to add some stormwater, some storm drain, just because they were originally with some roadside ditches, but we realized that wasn't going to work.
Okay. Any questions on Mike on those change orders? Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Quarterly reports from member governments.
Good afternoon again. These are the quarterly reports for the second quarter of calendar 2017 from 4 member governments. We did not get a report from RAMA.
What? They hadn't spent their $300 yet?
So I'll be glad to take any questions you might have.
We don't have.
Again, I'll just reiterate, for those of you who have constituents or friends or family or whomever asking about what RTA is doing and what's going on, this is an awesome document. And so every quarter I get one, I keep mine and put it aside and replace it. But I've referred to it a number of times, so just for your reminder.
I think we should send a letter of admonition to Town of Rama for failure to.
We'll tell Dennis. We'll tell Dennis next.
Well, as long as you keep the color going, we'll look at it.
Yeah, there you go.
I'd like to commend the photographer.
All right, administrative actions and reports. Report on recent board actions. Rick?
The memo's in your packet. Are there any questions on the highlights?
Any questions? Seeing none. Item 8B, November ballot measure process status report.
Again, the memo's in your packet. All of the items that are required by statute to be completed before September 8 have been done. Bev and I have hand-delivered the various documents to the El Paso County Clerk and Recorder's Office, including the 50% deposit check of $105,274.12.
Wow. That's a 50% deposit coming out of PPRTA funds.
I bet they were
Yes.
happy we showed up.
That's the cost to put it on the ballot?
That's the cost to put it on the ballot.
That's half of it.
Half of it, yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to be asking for their addresses so they can mail ballots to them.
On this ballot issue, I just throw out that at September 26th, at 21C Library, there is a I-25 GAP meeting with CDOT and other officials. That's at 5:30. So just if you want to attend and to get an update on the bigger picture, that meeting is at 21C Library on 26th. So, the library up near the mall.
The location for El Paso County was changed for this time, from 21C to the El Paso County OEM facility, which is just north off Mark Dabbling Boulevard, just north of Fillmore.
Okay.
Is that large enough?
The facility is large enough. There will be parking along the street and in our lot, but the facility is large enough, yes.
Okay.
Same time and same date?
Yes.
Jennifer, what was the time and date?
Just for historical reference, while the cost estimate for this ballot measure is $210,000, it was double that in 2012. It was $420-something.
But aren't they getting the same amount of money from everybody else who's putting something on the ballot?
Cheryl, it's prorated. The county's paying $400,000+ to put their ballot initiative on.
I don't know the exact formula, but the number of participating governments is one piece of the formula. I don't know if the amount of ink, the length of the ballot is another factor. I don't know if that's true or not, but we had a much longer ballot in 2012.
Another issue is the number of voters that are in that particular issue. If you're, quote, Weston Fire District, there's only 5 ballots going to be mailed, not as big, but you still got the printing cost, so it is a complicated formula, but it is prorated to.
And it's an estimate because there is a time period where a government, even though they say they want a ballot, can withdraw and not have to pay. So you could have fewer players splitting up the pie, and therefore the estimate goes up.
Okay, any other questions on that? Any agenda topics for the next meeting that anybody wants to bring up? Corey was going to Rick? Corey was going to update us next time he updates that steering committee, right, on the 2C? I don't know, I just hadn't heard,
I'll check.
Okay. Any member comments, communications from any member governments? I have one. I will I will not be here for next month's meeting. I will be in Albuquerque at the Balloon Festival. So
why don't you just
Wait a
ride
minute,
down
don't
there?
we cut his salary for this if he's gone?
Yeah, why don't you take it out of my salary? Yeah, that'll work. But I volunteer down there for the Balloon Festival, so we'll be down there for that, so. Any other comments from anybody, communications? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.
What's this?
Done and done. Done and done it.
Bye.
We done it.
They used me for weight on one of those balloons one year.
Yeah.
We went a couple, three
I have
times.
flown in that festival.
Hey,
That
Dave?
is- Wow.